Welcome back to another episode of the Inquisitive Mamba Podcast. This is episode 169. I hope everyone is having a great day, great night, wherever you are around the world. Before we get into the show officially, make sure to hit that follow button, subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Last episode of this year in 2025. So much to get into on today's show. With college football, the quarterfinals are officially here. New Year's Eve with Miami, Ohio State kicking it off, along with the New Year's Day games with Texas Tech, Oregon, Indiana, Bama, Georgia, and Ole Miss. So I'm super excited. Last weekend, regular season of the NFL, Week 18 coming up this Saturday and Sunday. We have the Falcons and the Rams playing tonight, of course, Monday night, capping off Week 17. Drake May's heroic performance in Week 17 against the New York Jets, and everyone's going to say, Joey, it's just the Jets. We'll talk all about that as well. I had a good Christmas. That was awesome as well. Stranger Things, got a chance to watch all 3 episodes from season 5, volume 2 or part 2. And then, of course, the finale comes out New Year's Eve. So super excited for that. Got a chance to watch the John Elway documentary on Netflix. That was really, really good. I have my notes here as well, of course, but I didn't know that John Elway was drafted by the Baltimore Colts in 1983 and refused to play for the Baltimore Colts. And said, hey, I'm not playing for the Baltimore Colts. And then he ended up on the Broncos. We all know the rest there. 2 Super Bowls there. The Broncos ended up losing 3 Super Bowls. I got a chance to go to Denver for a bachelor party this past August, and I got to hear a lot about the Broncos history. And then I got a chance to watch, of course, the Elway documentary this past weekend, which was exceptional. It was really cool to hear John Elway's point of view from his perspective, basically, on how his career unfolded. And then, of course, his time at Stanford, him as a baseball player, getting drafted by the Yankees. So there's a lot of NFL history that I never knew about, of course, not being around during that time, but a lot to get into on the show. Of course, Marcus Freeman this morning saying that he is coming back officially to Notre Dame for next season. He's under contract till 2030. He was linked to some NFL teams, Titans, Giants. You have that there as well. Michigan getting their big splash with Kyle Whittingham. We'll talk about that as well. But I think the first thing that we'll start off with for today's show is, we briefly just talked about the John Elway stuff there, of course. I think our first segment will be Marcus Freeman. So one of my good friends, Billy, is a diehard Notre Dame fan. I always ask him, why are you a Notre Dame fan? It's because he's Catholic. I always give him heck for it. However, though, Marcus Freeman is back, and people were asking me, what are your thoughts on Marcus Freeman coming back to Notre Dame this year? Well, I think it makes total sense for Marcus Freeman to come back to Notre Dame. I don't see why he would leave. You're building a legacy over there. You just made the national championship last year. You didn't make the playoffs this year because of politics. You're not in a conference. That's a whole nother conversation. But I don't think it would have made any sense for Marcus Freeman to go to the NFL. Why would you want to go to the Giants? They're an absolute dumpster fire right now. We don't know the whole situation with Jackson Dart and their whole coaching situation there, who they're going to hire next year, who the GM is going to be. As of right now, it's Joe Shane. Everything's up in the air. Of course, they just beat the Raiders yesterday. Then you have the Titans with Cam Ward. And that whole situation there, Cam Ward's a dream to play for. He's shown flashes this entire season. But why, if I'm Marcus Freeman, would I put myself into 2 messy situations when I have a great situation going on at Notre Dame? They're adding more talent to their schedule or better opponents. Cough, cough, the whole USC situation there after next year that they didn't come to an agreement. We talked about that on last week's episode. However, though, Marcus Freeman, you have done a great job at Notre Dame. You took over for Brian Kelly. Like I said, you made the national championship last year. You had another 10-win season this year. So I think it makes total sense. He's getting a big name recruits in. He's making a ton of money there. He's building a legacy. So if I'm Marcus Freeman, why the hell would I want to step into the NFL? And I'll say this right now. Past coaches in the NFL that have gone from college to the NFL, Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, So there's been plenty of other coaches. Okay, fine. There's other names as well. Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, but they got put into great situations with the Cowboys when they won those Super Bowls there. But if I'm Marcus Freeman, I'm a young head coach. I'm proving myself in college football. A lot of players want to play for Marcus Freeman because he is a darn good coach. He's a player's coach. And yeah, of course, the NFL interest speaks to his resume. He's had a ton of success there. Of course, the college football playoff run last year with Notre Dame, with Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love. He has proven that he is there to stay at Notre Dame, and he has the opportunity. He has every right to take calls from NFL teams. I don't see why not. He's still the coach of Notre Dame, of course, but I don't have a problem with him taking any calls. But for him to make a jump, I think it's still too early. You're building a legacy there at Notre Dame. There's a lot of continuity that they're building over there at Notre Dame. So here's some of the talking points for you guys. Marcus Freeman choosing Notre Dame over NFL interest. What does that say about his commitment and legacy? Well, like I just said, he has every right to take calls. They're at the end of the day, it's a business. Is this a win for Irish recruiting and stability heading into 2026? Yes, he said he's committed to staying there. I think it wasn't like a big deal that he took these calls. I don't know why people would be upset, even if they are. I don't understand why you would be. Could this commitment mean Notre Dame is ready to start winning the big one? Well, of course, they made the national championship last year against Ohio State. They were very outmatched. They were outnumbered. But Freeman's the guy to lead this team to a national championship. They've got a ton of money. They still have enjoyed a conference. We know that whole conversation there as well. However, though, the next segment I wanted to talk about on the show is Kyle Whittingham becoming Michigan's 22nd head coach in program history. Well, you know who Kyle Whittingham is. He just stepped down from Utah a couple weeks ago. He's the all-time winningest head coach in Utah history. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. A 21 season run at Utah, 177-88 record, and became the winningest coach in program history, which I just mentioned. Undefeated season in 2008, multiple coach of the year honors. Was exceptional in the Pac-12. But this move made perfect sense for Michigan. And we were wondering over the past couple of weeks, who is Michigan going to hire? Of course, with the whole Sharon Moore thing there. I feel like the whole Sharon Moore thing was like a year ago with the way of the college football landscape, with the way of the sports media landscape. However, though, Kyle Whittingham is the right guy to lead Michigan back to the promised land. And you know what I think? I think Ohio State fans are nervous sitting there seeing Kyle Whittingham, because I don't think a lot of people wanted this. I don't think Ohio State fans, and I don't think a lot of college football fans wanted Kyle Whittingham to be hired by Michigan. They were like, oh, they're going to get another guy. They're going to get Jed Fish or PJ Flack or another guy. They were never going to hire Biff Poggi, of course, as their head coach. That was never going to happen. Michigan has way too much money. They have way too much at stake to win a national championship. And of course, with Bryce Underwood, that whole situation there as well. They could not afford to lose Bryce Young. So Kyle Whittingham is the guy for this program. I love it. I loved Kyle Whittingham at Utah not a while ago, in a certain situation. I thought he would have worked out great at Florida. Maybe not this year. Well, of course, with the whole John Summerall stuff, but even before that, but just a name that was always kind of floating around. If he were to leave Utah, he lands in a great position with Michigan. He stepped down at the right time, and I think Michigan knew exactly what they were doing. Maybe this guy was the guy for Michigan all along when they did fire Sharon Moore, and they were just kind of keeping it on the low, on the down low. But he has done a great job at Utah, and it'll be interesting to see how he builds his coaching staff. I know the BYU defensive coordinator was potentially linked to there as well, but the biggest thing for Michigan now is how can Michigan get Bryce Underwood to that next step, because he hasn't been officially fully developed yet. You saw flashes this year, but now with Kyle Whittingham coming in, there is no excuses. Bryce Underwood, it is time for Bryce Underwood to shine and show that he is the guy. He's the reason why that they paid all this money, that Michigan paid all this money for him for the NIL deal that they paid him. But early recruiting reactions have been mostly positive, with many commits reaffirming or boosting interest from, just reading around the web. But this is a great hire for Michigan. I didn't expect it to be Kyle Whittingham. I know when the buzz came out, like last week, it was like, oh, Michigan's in talks with Kyle Whittingham. But when he stepped down from Utah, the Utes, I was like, maybe Michigan. But for part of me thought he was going to retire. And then I was like, nah, this guy's got way too much left in the tank. He has what it takes to get another team to the promised land. Utah's a good school, but they're not Michigan. They don't have the money like Michigan. And honestly, good for him. So Whittingham, he described Michigan as a special place and sees this job as potentially his final challenge in coaching. Yeah, this is definitely his last stop on the journey for him, with a strong aim at competing for a national championship. Toughness, discipline, physical play, and character. Yes, he's a very tough-nosed, old-style football coach, but it wasn't something that I expected. Michigan stuns college football with a coaching hire no one saw coming. Yeah, I honestly didn't either. And this is just me speaking this out there and telling you guys. Of course, after the scandal and the instability, they bring in a veteran leader with a proven record. Now, Kyle Whittingham, he comes in and he goes, I'm going to take this job. Aside from all the scandal stuff, I'm here to bring this program back to where they need to be. They just won a national championship not too long ago with Jim Harbaugh. So, yeah, 21 years at Utah. But we talked about this. He signed a 5-year contract through the 2030 season. He's averaging around $8 million a year. And this one here really got to me here. When they asked him, they said, about the whole Ohio State stuff. Excuse me here. I gotta get this for you guys. Here it is. New Michigan coach Kyle Whittingham has just admitted now he dislikes Ohio State and he's not shy about it. Whittingham's relationship with Urban Meyer is complex, friendly, but now rivalry territory. That's right, because Urban Meyer, Kyle Whittingham, Utah. But here we go. Does Whittingham's comment "I do now" show he grasps Michigan's rivalry culture? How might his relationship with Meyer influence or not influence his approach against the Buckeye? Well, that was a long time ago. Is this hire the right culture reset after recent turmoil in Ann Arbor? Michigan is one of those schools. Of course, you just had the whole Harbaugh situation there with the whole sign stealing thing with Connor Stallions, and then now Sherrod Moore with that scandal. And then Kyle Whittingham comes in and goes, "Nope, I'm here to lead this team." And they even asked him, they said, "Do you like Ohio State?" He goes, "I don't like him anymore." And I loved it. However, though, the next thing I wanted to talk about for college football was Lane Kiffin blasts the college football transfer portal. And we've talked about the transfer portal the past few weeks on the podcast. I have kind of vouched and expressed my opinion about it. But Lane Kiffin, of course, now he's LSU's head coach. We talked all about that last month. But he said it's gotten out of control, noting that the players are already talking about entering the portal even before it officially opens. Yes, I will say this right now. And if I did mention it already on the show in previous episodes, I'm going to bring it back up. Excuse me. It is an embarrassment. It is an absolute shame that the college football NCAA, and even sports, football mainly, is allowing the transfer portal to go on while the season is going on. If I can say this correctly, in the NFL, they let coaches interview during the season or even playoffs. I think that's crazy. But aside from that, free agents don't get to sign during the season. You don't get to commit to other schools during the season. Like entering the portal while the season is still going on I think it's terrible. I think they need to figure out some sort of structure and figure out how they can fix this. And I want to say a second point as well. College football needs a salary cap because the way it is going to be turning into baseball. In the NFL, you have a salary cap. In hockey, you have a salary cap. In basketball, you have a salary cap, but the luxury tax second apron now. So that's a whole nother conversation. But they need to figure out some sort of regulation, how they can put a cap on this because it has gotten out of control. It is just like baseball where, you have the best players, you can buy your roster. And I'm not just saying Ohio State last year. I'm just talking about in general. There has no cap on this. It is literally just a bunch of wild chickens running around in college football. Kiffin has every right to feel this way. The portal can be useful, especially for first-year coaches trying to add pieces fast. Yes, but this goes back to the whole continuity situation. It is very hard in college football to build your program when you have players entering the portal one year and they're getting offers from another school the next year. I have no problem with the transfer portal. I have no problem with players leaving. My problem is how they haven't capped this and how the transfer portal is allowed in the window of the season. That's my biggest problem. Why fans are talking about it. Some see it as hypocritical, criticizing a system Kiffin leveraged for success. Listen, Lane Kiffin, this is how he's going to be. He's going to be taking guys from the portal from probably Ole Miss to LSU. And of course, I think I saw 5 linemen enter the portal from LSU earlier today, but he has said the portal's out of control, but he built a success on it. Is that hypocritical or honest? Maybe it's a little hypocritical, but as a coach, you're going to say stuff like that. Should the NCAA tighten transfer rules, or is this just the new reality of the sport? A part of me thinks the NCAA likes this, but I don't think they thought it was going to get this out of control this fast. But then again, I feel like they have to know this because when you have teams like Ohio State, Miami, Texas A&M, Michigan that have a ton of money in NIL, these teams aren't going to use that to their advantage. Of course, the NCAA knew. The NCAA knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't some like, oh my gosh, like all the chickens are running around with their heads cut off type thing. Like that's how it is right now. But the college football the college football commissioner, SEC commissioner, the Big Ten commissioner, the guys all up in charts, the head honchos, they knew exactly what they were doing. So this is how it's going to be. Agents versus players. Who's really driving the transfer market craziness? Yeah, agents are sitting there on the phone with teams and their players saying, you deserve this amount of money. You can get this amount of money. This where Jaden Buzz, a perfect example with Florida. They may not be able to keep him because he may be getting more money at Texas or Ohio State. That's just the nature of it now. And I have no problem with that. But let's put a salary cap on this. All right. Let's move on to the college football quarterfinals games. Of course, our first game is Miami versus Ohio State. Super excited about that. I looked at the spread and I was like, Ohio State minus 9.5. I understand Miami looked rough against Texas A&M, but they've got a darn good defense. And the other side of the coin is, well, Ohio State is the best roster in the country. If the way Miami plays like the way they did against A&M, Ohio State wins this game by 21 points. So I don't know if I trust Carson Beck. I know it's at a neutral site. It's not at Ohio State. It's not at the Shoe, but it's a 7:30 kickoff. It's the New Year's Day game. I mean, to break it all down as best as I can, I think this game comes down to the trenches. I honestly, because a lot of Ohio State fans, and just from what I've seen all year, their offensive line has been very skeptical. And if Miami can take some snippets or some tidbits from the way Ohio State and Indiana played, though, if the way Indiana beat Ohio State, if you can get pressure on Julian Sand, you can win this football game. I think Ohio State wins this game, but I got Miami to cover the spread. And I got Ohio State moving on. However, though, I think it comes down to a few things. You get pressure on Sand, you control the line of scrimmage, Carson Beck doesn't turn the ball over, and Miami runs this football. Miami runs the ball efficiently like they did against A&M. They can get Tony, CJ Daniels, their playmakers, the ball. You can put pressure on Sand because that defense looked exceptional against A&M. And yes, Ohio State's a much better team than Texas A&M. Then another part as well, who's going to guard Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate? Well, if Julian Sand is getting pressure on him, if they can put pressure on him, I think this game can be a lot closer than people think. But yes, I got Ohio State to win this game in a close one. I think their roster is too good. I don't really like either one of these coaches, and Ryan Day and Mario Cristobal. I know, of course, Brian Hartline took the USF job, and he won't be calling the plays, but he'll still be there. It's going to be a bloodbath. Maybe Miami gets their revenge from that national championship in the early 2000s. I can't remember which year it was, but yeah, Miami had a gritty win against A&M. We talked about that on the podcast last week, but I've got Ohio State to win this game, but Miami to cover the spread. My big keys to this game: Julian Sand, get pressure on him. Miami with Carson Beck doesn't turn the ball over. They can run the ball effectively in the trenches like they did with Mark Fletcher against Texas A&M. And you could somehow take away Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate. I don't think this game will be a blowout. I really don't. I think Miami's got the horses. I think they have the athletes. Roster standpoint, Ohio State's got the best roster in the country. However, though, Miami can keep this game close. Maybe Miami shocks me. I hope they do, because I can't stand Ohio State and I can't stand their fans. However, though, I got Ohio State to win this game, but I got Miami to cover the spread. And I don't know what the over-under is, but yeah, I'm gonna go this in a close game. I got OSU by a touchdown. So now we got our next game, of course, Oregon. And actually, before we go on here, talking points: can Miami's defense slow down Ohio State's explosive offense? Yes, of course, because they only put up 10 points against Indiana. Of course, the missed field goal there at the end from Fielding there. Then does my experience and playoff pedigree tilt in OSU's favor? Yes and no. I mean, of course, Ohio State has that nasty NFL defense with Patricia Cullen at the helm as their coordinator, the Styles, Arvell Reese, Kenyatta Jackson, Curry, like they've got some dogs. Caleb Downs. I mean, that defense is ridiculous. What role does momentum from Miami's gritty first round win play? Maybe a little bit, because Ohio State's like rested, or maybe they come in cocky, and Miami's got a little momentum because they won their first ever college football playoff game. It's at a neutral site. I mean, there's going to be both 50-50 fans there. So you talk about that as well. But yeah, like I said, I got Ohio State to win this game by a touchdown. Miami covers the spread. Moving on to Oregon and Texas Tech, the Orange Bowl. In the quarterfinal, Oregon's favored by 2.5 points. Well, I mean, Texas Tech has played great all year long, but they really haven't been tested by anybody. And this is a game where you watch this game as an NFL scout or an NFL GM or an NFL coach, and you go, this is Dante Moore's game to win. Dante Moore has to show up in this game. And this is huge for him, because I think if he wins this game, we have to see if he declares for the draft, of course, but this is the big one here. You're supposed to be the guy. You're supposed to be most talented quarterback in college football that they're saying as of this year. He's got the raw talent. He's got the arm. He's got the legs. He's got the pocket presence. He's got a nice deep ball from watching that James Madison game. Yeah, he had the 2 turnovers, but this is a game where you shut down Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech is a sleeper in this game. Their defense has been good all year long. They really haven't been testing anybody. Oregon's minus 2.5. I can't bet against Dan Lanning and that team over there in Eugene. Of course, this is in Miami at the Orange Bowl. This is going to be a great one. But this is Dante Moore's game to win. This is Dante Moore's game to lose. This is his team. Oregon's defense has been good, of course, all year long, but this is all about Dante Moore. That's exactly where I'm looking at, and how fast Oregon's defense is, and how the playmakers play, of course, because they I don't think they open the full playbook against James Madison, but this is going to be a hell of a game. But I'm not betting against Dan Lanning and Dante Moore in this spot. Honestly, I might even take this myself. I might take Oregon -2.5 just right off the bat if I can get that as the line before the game starts. But you got to give Texas Tech credit where credit is due. They've been great all year long. Joey McGuire has led the Raiders to a program historic season, including the Big 12 championship and their first College World Playoff appearance. But you know what? The stage could be too big for them down in Miami. Their defense has been exceptional, but they haven't played a team like Dante Moore and the Oregon Ducks. That offense is fast. They fly up your screen. And if Moore doesn't turn the ball over, which we'll see against that Texas Tech defense, because they've been good all year long and how physical they are. I mean, they dog walked BYU, but BYU is not Oregon. Oregon is much better than BYU. And I would not be surprised if Texas Tech gets themselves into a very, very tough position where Oregon could just light the top off. They really could. If Dante Moore, that's how I'm feeling. So I got Oregon to cover -2.5 in this game. They should be the favorite. They have that high tempo attack, and Texas Tech has a top 10 defense. But can Dante Moore keep up the big play pace against the Raiders' pressure? If the Red Raiders can get pressure on Dante Moore, this is a total different game. That's the name of the game for Texas Tech's front seven, of course, with Joey Rodriguez, who was a Heisman. He got Heisman votes. So next game, Alabama versus Indiana, the Rose Bowl. Well, the Rose Bowl is one of my favorite places to watch college football. It's one of my favorite places I've ever been to for a football stadium. I got a chance to go out there when I lived in LA for a UCLA. I forget who UCLA was playing, but it was a UCLA game, and it was a freezing cold game. Shout out to my friend Sam Moreland. I went to that game with him. It was a blast. I got tickets from a friend of mine when I was living in California. So the Rose Bowl is an awesome place to play. It's one of the most historic. It's one of the most awesome. It's one of the most historic places in college football history. Of course, you've had all the awesome games there at the Rose Bowl. You had the Michigan-Alabama game there a couple years ago. Saban's last official game there. Oregon and I think Oregon and USC have played. I mean, there's just been so many historic games there. But sticking on this game here, though, well, a lot of people have Indiana winning the Natty. They're favored -7 in this game, and they have every right to be favored in this game. My keys, my takeaways, my breakdown to this game. Can Alabama run the ball effectively against that Indiana defense? Can Alabama get pressure on Mendoza? Is Indiana going to be able to take a page out of Oklahoma's book on defense and be able to put pressure on Ty Simpson? Because Ty Simpson at times looked very rough in the beginning of that game against Oklahoma when they were able to put pressure on him. Can Alabama get their playmakers the ball in Jeremy Bernard and Isaiah Horton and Ryan Williams? Can Ryan Williams step up? Does Alabama have the run game? Can they compete with this Indiana team? And this is Mendoza's moment as well. He won the Heisman. He's projected to go #1 overall in the draft there as well. So, Joey, I know you're an SEC guy. I'm talking to myself here, but I can't take Alabama in this game. I really can't. Maybe they surprise me, but I think Kurt Cignetti and Fernando Mendoza have something up their sleeve. They just beat Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship 3 weeks ago, and they're well rested. And this 7, the spread I think was more. I think it was 8.5 beforehand, but 7 is a good number for this game. I think Vegas is right on the money with this one. My biggest concern is Alabama. Can they run the ball effectively? Because Daniel Hill and Jam Miller have not been able to do that this entire season. Their offensive line looked very shaky against Oklahoma, and Indiana has a really good offense. But this is going to be an awesome game. I hope it's a great game. It looks like that way that it's going to be, but it's Indiana's first Rose Bowl appearance since 1968, and it comes after an undefeated 13-0 regular season. Of course, they went 12-0, and then they won the Big Ten Championship against Alabama. However, though, Alabama's, of course, been the powerhouse all these years. Their last appearance in the Rose Bowl was with Nick Saban and Jalen Milroe when they called that 4th and goal play. I'm pretty sure against Michigan. It was against Michigan, but I think it was 4th and goal. But they called that play. It was a QB power to Milroe, and he got sacked. And this is going to be an awesome game. This is Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza, arguably the two best college football quarterbacks in college football this entire season. I've been teetering back and forth. Who would I like more? Mendoza, Simpson, they're both experienced. Of course, you have Dante Moore as well, but this is going to be an awesome game. So I have to pick against the SEC. Everyone's going to think I'm crazy because I'm just this big SEC homer. No, not the case. I understand that is completely different now with the 12-team format. So I've got Indiana to win this game, and I've got them to cover the spread -7. So that's where I'm going there. And I'm super excited for this game. Alabama's looked shaky at times this season. They have a lot of flaws. they have a lot of weaknesses. And I don't think this Indiana team has very many weaknesses. It's just going to be about how Ty Simpson can handle the pressure. If they can get those three receivers the ball with Bernard Horton, and Ryan Williams, and how Mendoza will play effectively with their receiver. I'm pretty sure his name is Surratt. So this is going to be a good one. Alabama's comeback versus Oklahoma gave them belief. Can they carry that momentum versus an elite mistake-free Indiana team? I think if you make mistakes against this Indiana team, they will make you pay. Kurt Cignetti is an exceptional coach. You saw what they did against Ohio State. And that was a really close game, neutral site, just like this one will be here at the Rose Bowl. But yeah, it's Indiana's first Rose Bowl appearance in 60 years and first ever college football quarterfinal at the Rose Bowl. Indiana's, I don't know when the last time they were good in college football. They made the playoffs last year against Notre Dame, and they got absolutely smoked. Key matchup, Alabama's offense versus Indiana's discipline. Can Ty Simpson and the Tide's receiving core carve holes in the Hoosiers' defense? Exactly what I was saying. Indiana protects the ball better than almost any team in the country. Can Alabama create takeaways that can flip this game? If Alabama can create turnovers in this game could be completely different. Obviously, you saw the pick six was Xavier Brown against John Mateer, and their defense stepped up big after Alabama was down 17 points. But that's where I'm rolling with. I got Indiana to win this game. I got them to win this game by a touchdown. I like that. I don't think that's a lot of points in a game like this. Maybe it is, but hey, maybe I'm wrong and Alabama covers the spread, but I'm rolling with the Big Ten. I think Indiana right now, after beating Ohio State, that's the best team in the country. Until proven otherwise, that's where I'm going with. Well, the Sugar Bowl, the last game for the New Year's Day slate. Super excited about this one. Georgia versus Ole Miss. No Lane Kiffin. Kirby Smart takes advantage of Pete Golding. Of course, Pete Golding and Ole Miss had their first win in the college football playoff history last weekend against, no, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago against Tulane when they absolutely smoked them. Their first game, college football playoff in Oxford. If you guys do remember this, Ole Miss and Georgia matched up earlier this season in Athens, and Georgia was down 17 points, and they came back and won this game. This was a big moment for Trinidad Chambliss. Georgia came back, they stormed down the field, and they won that football game. It was Ole Miss got the ball, and they couldn't convert, and they couldn't really do anything. But Ole Miss doesn't have Lane Kiffin. So that's what I think this game is going to come down to. X's and O's. Pete Golding was at Alabama under Nick Saban. He knows Kirby Smart really well, but I don't think offensively and defensively, mainly offensively, they can keep up with Georgia. Georgia's shown weaknesses at times this season with their defense, but as of right now, they have looked like one of the most complete teams in college football. I think they handle Ole Miss no problem. I think Pete Golding gets himself in a really tough position, and the way Georgia's defense has played down the stretch has looked really good. I mean, they dominated Alabama. Now you can say, is Alabama better than Ole Miss? It doesn't matter. It's a total different game. I think Georgia has one guy that is an absolute playmaker, and that's Zachariah Branch, obviously the USC transfer. And they have Frazier, the running back, and Gunnar Stockton doesn't really turn the ball over that much as well. But Kirby Smart is the advantage of this game. X's and O's. They've already won 2 national championships with him being there. Georgia won the regular season matchup 43-35. So I've got to go with the spread -6.5. The only underdog I have really covering in this college football playoff is for this weekend, for this slate here for the quarterfinals, is Miami. Now, I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong, because I would love for all of these games to come down to the wire. None of these are blowouts. None of these teams that are matching up against one another are way over, or the one team is overmatched compared to the other. But yeah, I'm super excited. So I got the Georgia Bulldogs covering this spread -6.5. I think Georgia's just too much of a firepower, too much of a powerhouse for Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss runs into a really tough spot. I think without Lane Kiffin, this team, struggles. They don't have that offensive mind. Of course, it's going to be the same plays. Charlie West Jr. is going to be calling the game as he has plays all season, but no Lane Kiffin on the sideline, no Lane Kiffin in the locker room. I can't bet against Kirby Smart in a spot like this. So I've got Georgia moving on to the Final Four. If I said that right, because it's quarterfinals, and then you have, whatever. Doesn't matter. You guys get the point. So we talked about that there. The next thing we'll talk about with college football, I think this is the last segment of college football, is the CFP expansion rumors, seeding changes, and timeline. Well, as of right now, it's a 12 team, but it could change next year, and it could change after that. If you're asking me, I think the college football playoff should expand from 12 teams to 14 teams, just like the NFL, 7 teams in the AFC, 7 teams in the NFC. I don't see why they don't expand this, because every single year there is going to be teams that are left out of the college football playoff. So if you're asking me, yes, they should 100% expand this. I was talking about this with people earlier this morning. I can't believe that you're saying that they should expand this. I don't see why they shouldn't expand this. I really don't. Right now it's a 12 team for the 2025-26 season, but on January 23rd, they're going to finalize the future postseason format plans. Because I will say this, if you're going to expand it, the teams that wouldn't have been left out would be Vanderbilt, Texas, BYU. And then you could also say the other side of the argument, well, Tulane and James Madison have no business being in this college football playoff. I'm not saying they are, but they're not going to leave out a G5 team. If they want to leave out one, that's fine. Or if you can't have two, you can have one. Perfectly fine. But there's going to be major structural evolution for this college football playoff in the near future. I honestly could totally see them expanding this. 1, because of money. 2, because of NIL. And 3, because you get more games. And of course, that all boils down to money. So obviously a 24 team where that would never happen. It's not like March Madness. People were upset when they had 4 teams, and now they're upset when there's 12 teams. So people are never going to be happy. But if you're asking me, yes, they should 100% expand this college football playoff. Before I was like, no, 12 teams is enough. But if you're telling me you're going to leave out Notre Dame and Texas, or you're going to leave out BYU or Vanderbilt, oh, Joey, a 3-loss team should never get in. It's like, well, in the NFL, three loss teams get in the AFC and the NFC playoffs. So, and I know college football is different than the NFL, but that structure, 7 teams in the AFC, 7 teams in the NFC, 14 teams in the college football playoff, I don't have a problem with it. And if you guys have a problem with it, let me know in the comment section. I would love to know. We talked about that though. The last point we'll make about college football with the 12-team format is 24 teams too much of the future of college football. I think 24 teams is way too much. How will seeding changes affect first-round matchup and New Year's 6 relevance? Realistically, at this point, like these bowl games don't matter. Like I know that they have the Citrus Bowl and the Pinstripe Bowl and the Pop-Tarts Bowl. What would a 16-team CFP mean for Power 5 parity, and could mid-majors finally get a fair shot? Well, I mean, your 2 G5 teams just got in, Tulane and James Madison, and you saw that. So maybe they close the case and they go 12 teams is enough. We don't need any more teams because we just saw the product that was just put out this season. So we'll find out after the national championship, of course, which is on January 19th, and then they'll have that meeting on January 23rd. But we'll move on to the NFL. A lot happened in week 17. Of course, we have the Falcons and the Rams playing tonight with Matthew Stafford trying to solidify his MVP case over Drake May. The Thursday Christmas Day games were absolutely horrible. I mean, I know the NFL didn't do this on purpose. It wasn't their fault. I mean, if there were playoff implications and these 3 teams or these teams that played the 3 games, they were all in playoff contention, of course, besides the Broncos, these games would have been great. Broncos, Chiefs, Mahomes, Bo Nix would have been great. Minnesota Vikings, McCarthy, we haven't fully seen it yet. He's shown flashes. He's shown a lot of bad signs. Then, of course, the Lions, they fell off a cliff this season. Cowboys and the Commanders with Prescott and Daniels. That didn't happen, of course. We saw Mariota and Prescott, and you had the Cowboys were eliminated from playoff contention already, as well as the Commanders. So those games were nothing to really write home about. So we're not really going to talk about that. However, though, Saturday's games will briefly touch upon Texans and the Chargers. I feel like the Texans have the Chargers number. I really do. Like, I mean, you saw last year in the wild card, the Texans dominated the Chargers. They dominated them again. This game here, they clinched their 3rd straight playoff berth. And then you had the Ravens absolutely smoking the Green Bay Packers. No Lamar Jackson. The Ravens are still somehow in it. To Eric Henry had, I think, 216 on the day, or excuse me, on the night. No Jordan Love, of course, Malik Willis. Then he got hurt, and then Clayton Tune comes in. Malik Willis showed some flashes, man. And the way the NFL is now, I saw some rumblings. Malik Willis could be the Jets quarterback next year. I think Malik Willis is going to get a shot in free agency. I don't know what team it'll be. It's definitely going to be a team that needs a quarterback. Now, of course, you could say, well, they just did this with Justin Fields. Why would they do this with Malik Willis? We really haven't seen anything outside of Green Bay. He didn't really get a fair shot in Tennessee, I feel like. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see that offseason. We'll talk about that when the offseason comes around. I don't want to talk about the offseason yet because we're in week 18. Then, of course, you had Sunday's games. Cleveland beating Pittsburgh 13-6. Shedeur Sanders had 2 interceptions. Rodgers and them only putting up 6 points. Myles Garrett didn't break the sack record yet, but Steelers forcing the AFC North decider this weekend. The Sunday night game, that'll be interesting as well. Patriots beating the Jets 42-10. I'll do a short segment on that. Patriots clinching the AFC East. First time since 2019. Dolphins beating the Bucks 20-17. Miami edges Tampa in the Florida matchup there. Bucks and the Panthers coming down to the NFC South division title this Saturday at 4:30. Bengals beat the Cardinals 37-14. Joe Burrow and the Bengals just handling business against the Arizona Cardinals. Seahawks beating the Panthers 27-10. It was a rough first half for both of those teams, but Seahawks inch closer to the NFC West title. That is, we'll have that this Sunday night or Saturday night, which people were up in flames about for the NFC West. And then you had the Jaguars beating the Colts 20-17, and the Colts, of course, are officially eliminated. Jaguars have been on a roll. They really have. Saints beat the Titans 34-26. Giants beating the Raiders 34-10. Giants spoiled the Raiders season, but Raiders push towards a top draft pick. I don't know, Giants, the whole tanky situation there. Then you had the Eagles beating the Bills 13-12. Briefly talk about that. Got a segment for that. And then maybe some people say the game of the year, 42-38. The Niners and the Bears in a shootout, 42-38, was an absolute shootout. So, of course, we have tonight's game. Some of the headlines, we had the Patriots clinching the AFC East the first time since 2019, maybe getting the 1 seed if the Chargers beat the Broncos this weekend. However, that's probably not going to happen because Justin Herbert has now been ruled out and he's not going to play. And obviously they're going to be resting him for the wild card game the following weekend. Well, the AFC North title, we got that coming up this Sunday night between the Ravens and the Steelers. I can't believe that the Ravens are still in it. And we don't even know if Lamar Jackson is going to play this Sunday night. Then you have the NFC West title we just briefly talked about. Seahawks victory puts them in control of the division. That's going to be a great game. And then the Bucks and the Panthers. Well, the NFL Week 17, we'll talk about the Eagles, Bills, the Bears and the Niners, and the Patriots and the Jets. Well, that Eagles-Bills game was everything that I expected and more. Brady and Kevin Burkhardt on the call. Bills were getting dominated that entire game. Down 13-0. You had the Josh Allen tuck rule fumble. The Devontae Smith, was it a catch? Was it not? I think that was in the fourth quarter. Hurts 0 passing yards in the second half. Josh Allen falling short at the goal line. But people sitting here blaming Josh Allen on that 2-point conversion. Oh, he missed Shaquille Shakir in the back of the end zone. I mean, I get it. You can be mad about that play, but then again, they're both these teams are in the playoffs. If the Bills didn't get that kick blocked by Jalen Carter, I think it was, in the Eagles, the PAT, they probably would have won the game. Now, of course, shoulda, woulda, coulda. The Eagles played a great game. Their defense stepped up huge in the end there. Their defense was big all game. But yeah, Philly forced multiple punts, and the early takeaway, of course, at the beginning of the game. Some people say that could have changed the outcome. You could say there, including the key fumble recovery. Allen had the tush-push touchdown at the end there. But yeah, I mean, if you're asking me about the Josh Allen play in the first quarter when he fumbled the ball, that was 100% a fumble. I understand the whole tuck rule years ago. His arm looks like it's going forward, which it was, but he wasn't throwing the ball. His arm went forward like this, and he just basically got the ball knocked out by Jalen Phillips. So people sitting here and telling me that wasn't a fumble, it was 100% a fumble. And I really think we can all agree. Go back and watch that play countless times. And I love giving you guys my opinion. Of course, we had the whole Lions-Steelers stuff last weekend with the whole Tesla. Then you had the Amon-Ra, the OPI. But this one here, with Josh Allen, that was 100% a fumble. And then the second one here, the Devontae Smith one, I saw this online. Of course, I watched it back. That was not a catch by Devontae Smith. I understand the ball can hit the ground, but that was not a catch by Devontae Smith. He didn't maintain full possession of it, and he used the ball basically as a crutch from the ground. So no, that was not a catch. But this was a classic defensive slugfest, 13-0 at the half. This was an ugly game. Then both offenses, of course, had trouble getting going in the second half. And then his final drive was clutch. Josh Allen's final drive was clutch to get into scoring range, but that 2-point try was the defining moment of the game. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this game got great in the fourth quarter. I had a feeling the Bills were going to come back. I really did. Philly's defense got the stop, and that's what playoff win games do in December. Yeah, the Allen fumble that shifted the momentum. Of course, we talked about that. Was the sack fumble sequence. Phillips forced the ball out of Allen's hands, and was a hell of a play by Jihad Campbell to hustle and recover it. Later in the fourth quarter, with the Bills calling back in Philly trying to chew clock, Devontae Smith was thrown the ball by Jalen Hurts. Looked like a solid game, but the rules incomplete. That was 100% an incomplete pass. Please go back and watch that. Please go back and watch that Devontae Smith catch and tell me how that was a catch. I would love for people to tell me how that could be ruled a catch. The incompletion made 100% sense. Well, we'll talk about this here. The Patriots beat the Jets, and everyone's like, why are you talking about the Patriots? They beat the Jets 42-10. Yeah, but I don't think people realize Drake May's stat line from that game, and not even just the stats, just watch the tape on that game. And it's the Jets. They've got the worst defense in the NFL, and it's basically a Pee-wee, a Pop Warner team, or a high school team. I don't care what people have to say. Having 2 incompletions in that game, and one wasn't even his fault, was a drop by Kyle Williams, and having a stat line, stats don't matter, right? No. 5 touchdowns of 5 different receivers, only quarterback in Patriots history to do that. Go back and watch that game. Some of the throws he made were absolutely ridiculous. 256 yards, 5 touchdowns was insane. Diggs had another great game, but you can say what you want, but if the Patriots were in a close game with the Jets yesterday, everyone say, the Patriots are overrated. I can't believe it. It's like Drake May had an insane game. He's up to 30 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the day, but thanks to Buffalo, the Patriots now are AFC East division champions for the first time since 2019. We're not playing for a division title. Obviously, we're playing for way more in the playoffs, but it's an awesome step in the right direction. And from where they were last year, 4-13. But I just want people to sit here and understand how good that Drake May performance was this season. That Drake May performance was arguably the best performance in the NFL this season. I know Josh Allen had a 5 touchdown performance earlier this season, but if you go back and watch that game, I don't care if it's the Jets, I don't care what team it is. You throw 5 touchdowns in a game and you're playing like the way you did, you deserve flowers, you deserve kudos. So people can say, it's the Jets, this, that. No, they absolutely dominated that game. They're up 35-3 at one point, and they took May out in the third quarter. It's like they could have kept him in if they really wanted to. Stephon Diggs had another great game, but Drake May looked unstoppable. 5 touchdown passes before is the kind of performance that wins MVP votes. Even if he doesn't win MVP, he's had an exceptional year. Of course, he's the first quarterback, like I said, in Patriots history to throw for 5 touchdowns to 5 different receivers in a single game. I mean, if Tom Brady didn't do that, that's a special feat right there. But I mean, everything about it was an awesome game by Drake May. The one throw to Stephon Diggs that you got Moss, basically, the high point throw was ridiculous. Move on to the Sunday night game. You had the Bears and the Niners 42-38. Well, this was an absolute shootout between these two teams. I mean, Purdy finished with 303 yards, 3 touchdown passes, and 2 rushing scores. McCaffrey had his day as well. Caleb Williams had an exceptional game with 330 yards, 2 touchdowns. I watched the entire game as best as I could. And people are going to blame Caleb Williams for that last play of the game. So let's break it down. It's 4th and goal. I think there's 4 seconds left on the clock. Williams drops back. There's a free rusher in Bryce Huff who comes off the edge. I don't know how you can really blame Caleb Williams for this play. It wasn't like he was trying to do too much. He was doing everything he could. Yeah, he missed. I think it was Luther Burden in the end zone. I can't remember the receiver's name, but I watched it 4 or 5 times. Drops back, runs, does his little razzle-dazzle thing, and he kind of throws across his body. And people were arguing and upset because DJ Moore was open in the corner of the end zone. I don't think people realize how hard it is to throw across your body like that when you have defenders coming at you from all different angles, and your read is your eyes are here, and okay, maybe DJ Moore was open, but you can't put the blame on Caleb Williams on that game. Yes, it's a frustrating loss, but I'm not going to say it came down to one play because the Bears defense couldn't stop the Niners offense. Bears defense couldn't stop a nosebleed last night. Caleb Williams, I mean, they had a couple fourth downs there as well. Of course, the Bears, first play of the game, they had the tip pass where it was the pick 6 in the 7-0 TJ Edwards. But yeah, here it is. Time expiring in the Bears at the 2-yard line. Williams rolled out looking for a win, but pressure from Bryce Huff forces throw to Jade Walker. That's his name, to follow incomplete, sealing the Niners victory. Yes, Bryce Huff came off the edge unblocked. So basically, while the play, as soon as the ball gets into Williams' hands, he already has a rusher coming at him. So he is already knocked off his block, his completely off his game. He's not able to sit in the pocket. They're blitzing him. I mean, you can blame the Bears offensive line if anything, because the guy was literally unblocked. So this ended the Bears' bid for the number 1 seed in the NFC. But, that defense concerned me last night. That was questionable. It really was. But the Niners offense is averaging 35 points a game since Purdy has come back. I mean, they've looked like a completely total different team. But, now the Niners can clinch the NFC 1 seed if they beat the Seattle Seahawks next weekend at home. But you know what? Even in a loss, the Bears showed they were legitimate contenders, trading punches with one of the league's best in driving for the win on primetime on national TV. From the Bears to where they were last year at 5-12 to where they are this year, everything's been a success for the Bears this year. Everything is a success, I feel like, for the Bears. Like, I mean, even if they get knocked out in the wild card, like, you still have to give them credit, because from where they were last year, finishing last in the division, to winning the division this year, they've done good. This looked like a playoff preview. 42 points, 936 yards of total offense, and a finish straight out of January football. Yes, this was an awesome game. Some people say it was the game of the year. You know, Purdy keeps stringing these big performances together, but Caleb Williams and Burden put the league on notice. That one touchdown Caleb Williams had to Burden over the top there was a play of beauty. But yeah, I mean, the end of the game there was pure NFL drama. Incomplete pass with everything on the line. It's just, that's how these games go. You had the Bills and the Eagles game, 2-point conversion. And you had this game. Maybe we'll get something like this tonight. Probably not. Maybe we'll get a Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford duel it out tonight. That'd be awesome to see. But Week 18 preview, we'll run this down as quick as you can. Steelers, Ravens, Seahawks, Niners, Panthers, Bucks. Those are 3 highlighted games. Steelers, Ravens for the AFC North title. I don't know if Lamar Jackson is playing, so I really can't give my prediction, but I don't want to bet against Aaron Rodgers in a spot like this. And you know what? I still go back to last week when DK Metcalf, some would say he punched the fan. Somebody say he didn't. It looked like he threw a punch. It was a weak punch. However, though, DK Metcalf really hurt his team, because you saw them lose to the Browns yesterday, 13-6. But if Lamar Jackson is playing, I'm going with the Ravens. If they can run the ball effectively with Derrick Henry, you know what? I think if the Ravens even don't have Lamar Jackson and they play like the way that they did against Green Bay, the only problem is it in Pittsburgh? It's got to be in Pittsburgh, because the last game that I watched 3 weeks ago was on the cruise, and they were in Baltimore. So this is the winner go home game, and fans were upset that I can't believe they're putting the Ravens and the Steelers on primetime on Sunday night over the Seahawks and the Niners. That should be the game. It's like, guys, both of those teams, the Seahawks and the Niners, are already in the playoffs, and the Steelers and the Ravens are playing for the AFC North divisional title. So yeah, sign me up if I can get a Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, potential last regular season game of his career. Who knows? That could be the case as well. So yeah, it has nothing to do with East Coast bias. This is the game that should 100% be on Sunday Night Football. And I thought it was going to be. I was texting Billy, my friend, yesterday. I was like, Steelers, not Ravens, is going to be the AFC North Sunday night game. Well, we'll talk about the Seahawks and the Niners. These two teams are battling out for the 1 seed. I got to go with San Francisco to win the NFC West. This Saturday night game, 8:00 spot. Sam Darnold, I don't trust Sam Darnold in big moments. And the Niners offense has been hitting on all cylinders. Now, the Seahawks have a better defense than the Chicago Bears, I would say, even though the Bears have, their defense has been pretty darn good this season. But I got to go with the Niners at home. They have looked really good these past few weeks. They ride the Purdy and McCaffrey train. We don't know if George Kittle's going to play with his ankle injury, because obviously he didn't play last night. So give me the Seattle Seahawks to beat give me the San Francisco 49ers to beat the Seattle Seahawks at home. And you know what I'll say? If the Seahawks lose, if the Niners win this game, Kyle Shanahan is going to win Coach of the Year. Now, here we go. Why? You get the 1 seed with all the injuries that you had. Purdy was out for 8 games with a foot injury. Kittle was out. McCaffrey was out. No Bosa. No Fred Warner. Brandon Ayuk hasn't even played a snap all season. Juwan Jennings has been hurt this season. Banged up offensive line. Trent Williams has been in and out of the lineup. So, and people may say, Joey, you're crazy. Mike Vrabel, Cohen, or Johnson should be winning the Coach of the Year. But when you have a season like Kyle Shanahan and you've gone through backup quarterback and Mac Jones, all the injuries that you had, you're in the hardest division in the NFL this season with the Seahawks, Rams, and Niners, and you still get the 1 seed where you weren't even at one point probably projected to make the playoffs. He's got to win Coach of the Year, in my opinion. Now we can talk about that at a later date, but that's how I'm feeling right now. Well, we'll go to the Panthers and the Bucks, the 4:30 spot on ABC. It's insane. The Bucks have the chance to win the division, and the Panthers have a chance to win the division for the winner take all game. It's in Tampa, and for some reason, the Buccaneers are favored, but I think Baker Mayfield's got something up his sleeve. I think he's got something left in the tank for the Buccaneers to beat the Panthers. And Mike Evans could be his potential last game. I got to go with the Bucks in this game. I know I saw the spread was -2.5, but for some reason, I think Bucks have some magic up their sleeve for this game. They win this game and they squeak into the playoffs. And Carolina's season just comes short just like that. They've had a great year. They've done exceptional all year, of course, but Dave Canales facing his former team for the division title. What better way would you like this? And something about Bryce Young, man, I got to go with Baker Mayfield. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the Bucs don't have anything left in the tank, but I think they got a sour taste losing to the Dolphins last week, and they still have this. They still have this as their division. Of course, you got the Texans and the Colts, other key games. Well, not really, because the Colts are out of the playoffs now and the Texans are already in. Now it's just about the AFC seeding at this point. So week 18 matters. Of course, 4 division crowns are still undecided. Number 1 seeds in both conferences are not locked up yet. That's there as well. Of course, we talked about that. Ravens, Steelers, Seahawks, Niners. And the Bills will say goodbye to Highmark Stadium, and a win here can help their playoff seed as well, because right now they're the 7th seed as they lost yesterday. So we talked all about those games there, the main games. Some of the other games really don't matter as much. Of course, we have the playoff seeding implications as well. We talked about that. We talked about the Steelers and the Ravens. We talked about the Bucs and the Panthers. We talked about the Seahawks and the Niners. So, is the NFL prioritizing ratings over the best football game for Sunday night? Probably, yeah, because why wouldn't you want to see Aaron Rodgers on prime time? I mean, you could put him on Saturday, but they're just not going to do that. Should playoff impact games be all treated equally in prime time, or does the league get to pick its spotlight? I mean, I don't know how you're ever going to win an argument with this, because they literally week 18 is always undecided. This is just how that they went about it. Is schedule like I wouldn't care. I'll watch the Steelers on Saturday night. Doesn't matter to me. Is this scheduling decision unfair to teams like the Niners and Seahawks? You could say it's unfair because, of course, these 2 teams are getting a short amount of rest, because one of these teams is going to have to play next weekend, and you've only on a 6-day rest. But this is how it is in the NFL. Like, it's not going to change. So. But you know what, guys? I think on that note, that does it for us. I mean, we talked about all the college football stuff with Kyle Whittingham becoming Michigan's head coach, broke down all the quarterfinals games there. We talked about the transfer portal situation with how, should they put a salary cap in place? Does the transfer portal make sense even during the season that is still going on? We talked about, of course, the NFL just wrapping up with that Stranger Things final season finale, final episode. We'll talk about that next week. Last official episode of this year. I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in week and week out. We've grown exponentially over this year. We hit 1 million views for our second year in a row on YouTube. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, watching all the clips, and feedback is always appreciated. But yes, this is the last official episode of 2025. Had a lot of awesome guests this entire year. I thought it was only fitting to cap it off, giving you guys my full voice as best as I could. Like I said, we talked a lot, about college football this episode. Super excited for these games this Thursday. First game, of course, Miami, Ohio State. But, happy early. No, we can't say that yet. Not happy early New Year yet. But, thank you guys again for a great year. I hope everyone has a safe holiday and a happy New Year. We'll say happy New Year. Hope everyone has a happy New Year. This Wednesday night, the ball will drop, and we'll be watching some good football on Thursday. Excited for this Miami Ohio State game. Excited for all these games. This is like the pinnacle, I feel like, of football this weekend, because after these games, then we'll get playoffs for the NFL. So thank you guys as always for tuning in to another episode of the Inquisitive Mamba Podcast. And make sure to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. As always, guys, stay curious, stay locked in, keep that Mamba mentality, and we'll see you guys in 2026.